Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the new Hot Hotel Business's Hot Topics virtual panel series. I, of course, am Glenn Haussman. I'm excited to have you here with us today. You might know me from the No Vacancy podcast. Be sure to follow me on LinkedIn so you can get all the news that you need with panels such as this. Also, you might see I'm in a hotel lobby today. I'm here working with our good friends over at Choice Hotels, celebrating the 500th extended stay hotel in their family. Of course, this one here is an Everhome Suites, and I'm very excited to be over here, but even more excited to talk today about these issues that matter most to you. But before we get going on that, I just wanted to let you know that this session is going to be an hour, and we're going to stop right at the top of the hour on the nose. And we want to make this session as good for you as possible, for you. I encourage you to ask questions throughout the conversation that we're having. That way we can go to the issues that you're thinking about most, and I'm going to get to as many of those as we possibly can. Also, this is going to be run in the Hot Topics section in the December Green Book issue of Hotel Business Magazine. Of course, this session will be available at hotelbusiness.com, as well as via social media on LinkedIn and Twitter. Also, it's being recorded and it's going to be available online, and I'll be running it as an audio version podcast at the No Vacancy podcast feed. So make sure you sign up for that. All right. I'd like to thank our friends over at Unifocus, technology that drives value, for being here today. Make sure you check them out at unifocus.com. These folks are doing a great job with helping you find solutions to labor. So today we're going to be talking about balancing labor and guest experience for optimal profitability, right? Because the issue is striking a sustainable balance between labor costs, employee satisfaction, guest experience is the secret, in my opinion, to hotel profitability. But if it was easy, well, then everybody would be doing it, right? So today we've got great thought leaders that are going to talk to us about workforce management, guest satisfaction, driving financial performance, and how to do it all while pleasing all your stakeholders. So let's welcome to the show. We got it with us, Mr. Ben Campbell, President, CEO of Hospitality America, Mr. Ben Perelmuter, President and COO of TPG Hotels and Resorts, Jason Kreul, COO at First Hospitality, and Moneesh Arora at Unifocus, where he's the CEO. Guys, how are you all doing today?
Doing great.
Doing great.
Oh, thank you so much for hanging with me while I did all of the housekeeping notes. So I think the best place to start is Jason. My understanding is that back in the day, since we're talking about labor issues, Ben Perelmuter worked for you up there, and I understand something about you forcing him to scrape gum off pool decks.
Wow, we're hitting it hard early, aren't we, Glenn?
Resorts.
That was a different time, Glenn. That was 20 years ago, and I think Ben would argue if he worked for me or I worked for him. I think it might have been
but I think it really frames. I really think it frames the generational differences between the universe that we all grew up with when it comes to working in hotels versus how to create that optimal profitability today by balancing labor and guest experience. So, Jason, I know that's kind of funny and all, and you guys, bonded over these sorts of things. So how important is that sort of camaraderie in the workplace to really building relationships with your employees, something to create great experiences?
Glenn, before he answers, I just want to preface that scraping gum was not an initiative to drive guest satisfaction or manage the labor costs of the property.
Yeah, go on, Ben.
We did take that property to number 3 in the brand that year. So I'll let Jason kind of. Well,
and Ben's gum scraping was a big part of that.
Exactly. Yes, Jason.
Yeah, Glenn, to your question, I think it's hugely important, right? Connecting with each other. I mean, there's no doubt we all work very hard. Everybody in our hotels, we run 24/7 operations that never close. And, if you want people to work hard, you got to connect with them. And, I think my rule, especially when I was a GM, working for our associates and team members on the line was, whenever you interacted with an associate, you didn't just connect on whatever business things you had to connect on, but you always knew sort of one personal thing that was happening in that person's life. And you try to connect on that as well. So I think that carries really into any leadership role. It's very, very important.
Yeah, Ben Campbell. I mean, what he's saying makes sense. So, how do you think about getting your general managers to connect with the individuals at the property level?
Well, for us, I mean, it starts at the hiring process. It starts
Mhm.
at the business leader that we have at the hotel. But like kind of what Jason and Ben have been talking about, it's that core competency that they have of going the extra yard or extra mile
Mhm.
to fulfill that duty or fulfill that guest expectation. So for us, that's our core values. We constantly look for individuals that have passion, excellence, adaptable. They build communities and they're humble. We find that the people that have that level of core competencies, they have that common thread throughout the hotel, no matter if it's the business leader, as the GM, the director of sales, on down to obviously our housekeepers and our front desk.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And Ben P, I just want you to know that you're not the only one that scraped things off floors. One of my first jobs ever was working for a catalog distribution place. And people would shop in the catalog and they'd fill out a form, and then I'd have to go and pull the stuff off the shelves. And labels and stuff would get stuck to the floor all the time. And one day I had to do all of the scraping off of the floor. And those types of things I think really helped me create that sense of work ethic and understand, how all people in an organization need to partner together in order to create something successful. So, Ben, when you were working at the property level, how were you able to translate the lessons learned there into being an effective leader as COO of a major management company?
Yeah, back at the property level, you just kind of, you're working 24 hours a day, and you kind of see it from the ground level. You work, when you kind of move up the ranks, you see it from a little bit higher up, and from a strategic perspective. So you get both perspectives from the owner, what the owner's needs are as you work above property. When you're at the property level, you really see it from what the guests are experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and then trying to like balance those two, is really what I've seen be successful there. In terms of just the employee component there, I think back in the day, you could have your employer would say, hey, let's have a pizza party, that'll just fix everything.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I think today we see that all too much. There's pressures from the brands, there's pressures from the owners, there's pressures.
Uh-oh. It looks like Ben is
A pizza
breaking
party
up. Oh,
doesn't
there he
just
goes.
fix that anymore. So you have to actually be genuine, in the way you interact with the guests and the employees.
Ben, I got to tell you, the pizza party thing, man, that's become a meme. And right, I see it online all the time. And I'm in those Facebook groups paying attention to what line level employees are saying because it's so important for the rest of the business. There are too many owners and operators out there that still have that same opinion that if you just give people a slice of pizza, well, that'll make everything okay.
Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody appreciates a good slice
No,
of pizza.
I'm just saying that there
I'm
are too
not
many people.
discrediting that one bit. But you actually have to care about. You have to genuinely care about people, and if you don't, you're in the wrong business, or you have the wrong leader at that particular property. So the ones that are successful, it all trickles downstream because it's actually genuine. They enjoy going to work, and that trickles downstream, and they do the things that the employees are doing on a regular basis. And it's not just about buying them a slice of pizza and moving on, checking that box.
Right. So yeah, go on.
Sorry, Glenn. Just to piggyback off of that,
man.
this is a passionate thing for us. It's same thing with Ben. Like what we're talking about. If you want to give genuine experiences to our guests, we need to be trying to provide genuine experiences to our employees. They have to know what they're doing on the day to day for their job. We're training them and holding them accountable, but we also have to treat them, as Ben said, as human beings that are there to do the job for our guests and providing those services.
I like the idea. Yeah, go on.
I was just going to add, the one thing that I always remind myself about as a leader is you're spending more time with the people at work than you are with your own family.
That's right.
So, treat everyone like you treat your loved ones at home. Maybe not like I always treat my kids, but like you love them, right? And connect with them emotionally. Right?
Well, to be fair, they're all on the payroll, right?
That's right. Exactly. For a long time.
Yeah, Moneesh, I want to get you in here. What these guys are saying is pretty great, all about setting the tone. And you and I have had so many conversations about how to create a positive labor relations environment. What are you thinking about in regards to what they said and beyond?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said, and the pizza party thing is quite funny because I hear it often. We're all in the business of creating experiences, not just for guests, but for our employees who essentially are our product in addition to the properties that our clients manage. So I think being able to free up the manager, the person at the front desk, the housekeeper who's going to interact with people in the hallway as they're walking by, and get them away from a screen, get them away from administrative tasks. Mm-hmm. And so they have that genuine connection, whether it's developing an employee who just started in the industry, giving them feedback, and instead of them, a manager having to develop a schedule and work on a spreadsheet and do administrative non-value added tasks. So I think the more we can get in front of the guest, get in front of the employee, and have that human connection, that's what the use of technology should help us with, as opposed to replacing any sort of interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben P., I got to ask you about this. How are you thinking exactly about what Moneesh is talking about here? The idea of utilizing technology to free up all those amazing people to do what they're most passionate about, which is creating experiences for other people.
Absolutely. The more time you can free up to the guest-facing associates, anything that would help free time up so that they can actually spend time interacting with the guest is the way to go. And there's, certainly AI will play a role and is playing a role in that already. We have, there's property that I have there's a large full service property in Orlando where we're using AI to answer the phones and, generate text messaging to guests that check in and check out. I mean, that takes an enormous amount of pressure off of not only the management, but also the staff that it's about shifting resources to the guest. And then, also balancing the labor component out there, because of course we have to manage the margin. There's other areas in the hotel to look for efficiencies there, but absolutely nothing that's facing the guest, and utilizing AI and any technology you can to take mundane tasks away from those associates and just keep them in front of the guest. 100%.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense, Ben. And I will tell you, I do know which property you're talking about. And it is
you were there.
Yes, exactly. So it's such
right.
a big property with so many employees that you're trying to figure out ways to create these experiences every day. And if you could utilize some sort of technology to get people out of the back room and onto the floor, particularly in those early morning hours, and then when everybody's returning home from a great day at attractions in the Orlando area, that's really where you're going to make those memories, where you're really going to make a difference. Before we go on, I'd like to ask you out there, we've got a great audience today. What questions do you have for our incredible panel out there? Just type it in the Q&A box and we will get to those questions. So Jason,
Glenn, can I add to that?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I love that you guys are jumping in here today. So keep jumping in and I'll just shut up when you do. Moneesh?
Yeah, one thing, if you think about our industry, you've got a lot of people that enter this industry, whether it's part-time, full-time, they're coming from a different background, and we need to give them confidence and skills and training, and it's hard to do in this type of environment where you're always active. So another use of technology, I think, is how do you put it in the hands of someone at a front desk, in a maintenance room, so that they can have access to the tools, training videos, even an internal GPT, so that they can have confidence on the job. Because part of retaining people is giving them that confidence and those skills. So I think that's another thing we can do to make the job more satisfying and rewarding for people and retain them longer.
Yeah, Jason, what do you think about that? And then
I completely agree. It's going back to AI and what Ben was talking about. I mean, I think we still have a long way to go. I mean, just embracing, predictive scheduling, taking people's requests off that they have, taking people's desired days that they want to work, the shifts they want to work, and making all of that predictive in the scheduling, so that you take that step out of the manager's scheduling role, and then shift swapping. I mean, all of that stuff. I still think we have an opportunity, and I still think it can line up with having a productive workforce, having an engaged workforce, and having a highly engaged customer. And the more we can automate that stuff, the better off we're going to be.
Ben Campbell?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, but based upon what we're talking about here today, I mean, a lot of the focus has been on the employee side, but how to leverage both of those and understanding the guest service, like what labor model fits each business model of the hotel, right? Every hotel has a specific business model that we're going to design a labor plan around. But then with that, how does our business mix change and how are we adapting our labor plans to that, to Jason's point? And then how are we taking the labor force, the limited number of labor force that we have in a lot of these markets, and getting a lot more creative with, like what Moneesh is saying, with cross training of positions, getting more awareness around what's happening throughout the hotel in other departments, giving that different perspective to a front desk agent or to a housekeeper that may not see the whole aspect of what the business is and why a general manager is necessarily asking them to do a certain task.
Yeah, also, it helps engage those employees with understanding that this is not a job, it is a path for their careers. So many people come into our business not realizing that there's anything above that general manager position. So if we could help, so if we could help streamline the experience of your employees, then that's going to get them more engaged because they realize that this is a future. All right, so we got a question in here, and it's a little bit challenging. Paul Weigert is saying, I think one of the challenges that all these guys keep preaching AI, although so many GMs have no clue where to start. And to be fair, I don't think any of us necessarily know where to start. Well, maybe we know where to start, but we don't know where it's going. And I'll just speak for 30 seconds to set you guys up for this particular topic. The issue is when you have a new technology and it's being talked about so much, that typically means that it hasn't been fully adopted yet by people. It also means that people haven't figured out how to fully leverage it. And where we are, in my opinion, right now, and you guys could correct me, please, is that AI is both seemingly everywhere, but not yet anywhere at the same time. So while it's being incorporated into things, there's no quick and easy solutions that we can just say are AI solutions. So in the future, all solutions will have AI components to it. Jason, I'm going to go to you simply because you were nodding your head more than the other guys.
Yeah, I tend to agree a little bit on the question. I mean, AI has certainly become a buzzword, and we're all probably using it quite a bit here. But
hey, at least we got past saying blockchain every 5 seconds.
Yeah,
so I feel good about that.
I think a lot of it is on the come. I mean, you know, we just some of the things I mentioned on scheduling seem so intuitive. You know, how you get there. I mean, I'm sure the experts in that technology space are working towards that. You know, I think we all look at, you know, forward-looking forecasts. We all look at, you know, how expenses are trending, how labor's trending, but we don't yet have a tool that just tells us, hey, you better look at these 4 properties today because labor is trending in the wrong direction and we see a trend coming. We have to find that ourselves, but I think we're on the verge, and we're, you know, experimenting with that a little bit in our proprietary system called First Analytics at First Hospitality. We're not there yet, but, you know, we're getting there. I've seen some early versions of it. You know, does it save time yet? Probably not, but I think it will.
Yeah.
Moneesh,
go on, Ben.
I definitely want to hear what Moneesh has to say about it because he's more the tech guy. But I agree with Jason. But what I would encourage is understanding where the data is coming from and how to control the data. Where AI is going, we have no idea, but we know what they're going to make decisions off of, and which is going to be the data. You know, for us in a firm like Hospitality America, we have 20 assets today and growing to 30. But so my concern is the data that we're spinning off and all of our different platforms, on labor management to the forecasting tools to our business intelligence tools, accounting tools. What is happening with that data, and how can I centralize that data so that eventually when AI does catch up, that we're making better decisions on the back end with the AI? So just like First Hospitality, they're probably a little bit further along in their analytics platform than we are. But we're going through the same process today of bringing in that data, probably into a Microsoft environment, so that their AI tool will then be able to learn and help us in making those decisions.
Interesting, Moneesh.
Yeah, I think building on what Jason and Ben had said, we love to talk about the new shiny object, right? Before it was, Bitcoin and crypto, and now we're talking about AI, and it was blockchain a few months ago. We as an industry tend to be slow followers in technology, slow adopters, and that's not a bad thing. It's just recognizing where we're at. And so what Jason and Ben talked about is building the foundation so that we have the data and the information to feed AI, right? So AI is a large language model. It thrives off of data. And so as an industry, we need to actually get our data in order so that it can be informative, because we're going to move from these large language models to large action models, so that AI can tell you, hey, here's the data, and now I'm telling you these are the actions you should be taking. But in order to get that output, you need that large language model to be informed. And so as an industry, we need to get the basics right. And then we could still test, use cases out there. Ben gave a great example of using AI to answer guest questions. What time is checkout? Where's the restaurant? What are the hours? Those types of things. It's a great use of AI for call deflection as just one example. So we can do both, and we need to do both at the same time.
Glenn,
Right,
also,
yes, sir.
there are a lot of the brands right now have this data that Moneesh is talking about. It's right in their toolkit, and it takes quite a bit of training. I'm not going to call it any specific brand, because most of them do have these functionalities and these capabilities. But many of the brands have heat maps where if you log into their portal, you can see different color codes where certain rooms, that have routine guest complaints should be sold, later than other rooms. And so the information and the data is there. Guest profiling as well before a guest comes to the desk to check in. There's data already on the screen that shows, what room type they like, what their preferences are for F&B. And so it's really about kind of taking that and then interfacing it, to Moneesh's point, with some piece of technology that you can just say, you can call into an Alexa and just say, hey, tell me what room is the best for Mr. Kreul, who's checking in today at 3:00. And then they're going to say, put him in room 551. I mean, that's how I see AI evolving. And so whatever group kind of generates that interface, I'm sure we'll hear about it, and it'll be something that I think is worthwhile. But in the meantime, we should just continue to really utilize what the brands have and the tools that we have in front of us, and use that to drive the guest experience.
I think what the issue is, and hey, Paul, I saw you got another great question, and we're going to follow up with that in just a second. But I feel like all the brands have all of this massive amounts of data, but it might be too much of a good thing, because when you have too much, you can't necessarily get those actionable insights out of them. For example, I say this all the time, so I sound like a broken record, but brands have been collecting information from me for decades, and I have not seen them create anything that actually goes to the experiences that I want to have, that I've created a track record of in the past. So how can we break through to be able to leverage the information that we actually have? Or are we going to actually have to start from scratch with a whole new data systems? Jason?
And Glenn, I would tack on to that. I mean, and I don't think we're unlike other businesses in this regard, but we tend to speak and listen in terms of what's already happened, right?
Right.
We talk about what RevPAR index was last week. We talk about how our P&L was last month, when it's 6 weeks old. We, other than forecasting and a couple third-party groups like Demand 360 that'll give you kind of predictive looks moving forward, we're never focused on what's about to happen. We're not seeing around corners, and I don't think the asset managers that a lot of us report to on with hotel ownership groups are programmed to ask questions about the future necessarily, and I don't think that we're programmed yet to think in those terms. That's where I think we're going to end up going in the next few years.
Totally agree.
Fascinating. All right, so let's get to this other question that Paul has over here. So follow up, he says, we can't find labor. And when we find people and get them hired, a particular company's AI tells you this person can't work the next 2 days. Then they find another job. How do we teach the AI how to take employee retention into play? Interesting. Anyone want to jump with that in on that one?
I'd love to start.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ben.
No, go ahead. I'm a little unsure how.
Yeah.
What
All right, so Moneesh, why don't you,
Yeah.
why don't you kick it off, and then you'll.
I've heard
Give it
similar
to the
questions.
technology guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think where the question is coming from is, can we use the technology so that we can take into consideration what an employee really needs so that they find the job satisfying, right? Today, we're competing for labor from not your traditional sources, right? We're competing with Amazon, UPS, Uber, right? People that are going into the workforce that need, and post-COVID, they have made trade-offs around what's important to them. And so the traditional way of managing labor and saying, okay, here's your schedule, that doesn't work, and you're going to turn away a part of the workforce. So on onboarding and qualifying people, imagine being able to say, hey, use your iPhone, download our app, and tell us the days that work best for you. And do you have childcare issues? Do you have other issues? Just block those times out. And we will use our automation, our machine learning, and our algorithm to take all these data points and figure out how do we get 50 people into this schedule so 80% of their requests are accommodated and will work through the other 20%. The example I use is if you're going to get in a car, drive across the city, you're not going to use a paper map. You're not going to call the police station and ask for directions. You're going to use Google Maps or something like that. It's going to take all these inputs, variable, dynamic inputs, traffic, accidents, time of day, and it's going to constantly recalculate the optimal map for you. And you're going to make changes. Same thing with labor, right? So that's the technology that exists today. We're not using it. If you ask people out there, they're not fully leveraging what's available. And that's what would help solve these types of employee issues that directly impact retention.
Yeah. Ben,
I agree. I agree, but I agree somewhat. Some of the reality that happens in our employees' day-to-day lives outside of work is always going to play a certain factor in what we're doing. And technology is there to help eliminate some of the challenges or the barriers that we have that a lot of our associates have to come to the workforce. But ultimately, for our managers and for our business leaders, they have to have a structure going back to what our business model and our labor models are that makes sense to align with the guest experience that we're trying to accommodate that day, right? By understanding what's coming into the hotel on a specific day, it may not align with what the employees' expectations of saying, well, I don't want to work on these days or work these days. We're still trying to identify what's working best for the hotel to fulfill that. And sometimes it doesn't align exactly with the employee, right? On the AI side or the technology side, I think it's just helping us to make decisions better, like what Jason and Ben have talked about, getting our managers more forward facing with the guest, and then spending more time with our employees and hearing more of that feedback from them on what they want from the workplace. The last thing I'll say is, competing against Amazon and competing against a lot of these larger ones, we have something that they don't have. We're hospitable. We do this on a day-to-day basis. We should be applying that to our associates as well.
I don't know. I've been hearing a lot of great things about the Amazon work environment. Just kidding. Ben P, let's hear from you, friend.
Glenn, even though I'm kind of like a hybrid between both Ben and Moneesh, but even though I don't think we're quite ready to have juggle 50 people at the front desk at a limited service hotel just yet, but I think we can kind of step away from the traditional 8 to 3 schedules and be that strict about it. I think there isn't like a work from home option in a hotel, but our the way we view flexibility would be, instead of 8 to 3, it could be give me the 22 hours that you can work this week, but they have to be in 4-hour increments or 3-hour increments. We've tested that at a few properties, and we've seen some better quality hires, and certainly in guest facing positions. You may or may not be able to apply this rule across the board to all disciplines, but certainly the ones that are guest facing just have to approach it a little bit differently and adapt to what the market is calling for right now, or else I think you'll see that the property is going to struggle in retaining the quality individuals, because those individuals are looking for multiple jobs in different types of industries.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Ben, this seems to be like a real no-brainer to me, particularly when it comes to younger associates. Say, for example, I have 20-year-old twins that are in their third year of college. If they would work in a hotel, they've got a class schedule. So maybe they could work for 3-4 hours in the evening that happens to coincide with your busy period of when customers are coming into the hotel. So there are definitely solutions out there. But Ben P., I'm curious as to how you see the training and engaging young general managers, because there's so many out there that became general managers because of what happened over the last 4 years, because a lot of people left the industry. And some of these young people, and I know a few that got promoted maybe a little bit quicker than they otherwise would have, which could lead to a situation of inexperience and lack of confidence, which could create a negative experience for the staff on the property, not because they don't want to be good at their job, just because they don't have the resources of experience and information in order to manage to handle situations as they come. How are you working through that if you're having that issue?
It's certainly a challenge out there. I would say, for now, right now, we're starting to see some better candidates come through and some more stability in that space. But right now, I would say just slow down, stop the train, spend time with these individuals. Go back to not just the basics of having a training program in place, bringing them to your corporate headquarters and putting them through a few days of actual hand-holding, learning, training, celebratory stuff, and then set milestones to follow up with that throughout the rest of the year, rather than just kind of winding them up, putting them out in the lobby and saying, go ahead and do all these 20 things, and we expect to see that scorecard all green next month. I mean, if that's the expectation, I think you're going to find failure, and that they'll move on to somewhere else. So it's really about, if they believe that you support them and that you're invested in them. I mean, you're the one that ultimately made the decision to put them in that role. It's not their fault that they were given that job to do. And so now the ownership is on our lap right now to figure out how to ensure success there, because we certainly thought that they would be successful putting into that role. They didn't have the skill set and the background like say 10 years ago. The traditional trajectory and the path to becoming a general manager, I mean, could take 20 years to do that. Right now it could take 3 or 2 years, right? And so we have that responsibility, because at the end of the day, the results that we're looking for are something that we're accountable for. And if we put that general manager into that position, it's now our responsibility to set them up for success. And I believe that specific setting up for success is training, hand-holding, kind of mentoring, sending more seasoned general managers to the property and spending actual time with them, partnering them up with someone that has a little bit more experience. And then also surrounding, we've explored some options where we put some folks that are retired into front of the house jobs, like front desk or lobby lizard, and just kind of something that you'd see maybe at a golf course, somebody at a starter now in the lobby. And that individual has been through many downturns, and some of the individuals that they're around have only seen this kind of post-COVID service lackluster environment, and so we've seen some success there. So kind of tying all that together.
Ben, I love what you're saying, and it's got me thinking about an older person being the personality of the hotel during the breakfast time period at select service hotels. Yes. I think that's a phenomenal opportunity to engage an employee create amazing guest experiences through interpersonal connections.
Yeah.
Jason, I see you want to say something over there. How are you feeling about that? And then the larger issue that we're talking about.
Jason's been through a lot of downturns, by the way. I'll just slide that in there.
Yeah, most caused by you when you were working for him? Is that what it is?
Yes. Do it, delegate it, or don't, right, Ben? Look, what Ben was just saying does resonate with me, and I think that I have kind of this interesting experiment going at home because we have 3 kids in college. We have 2 that just came out, right? So I've been a part of seeing some of their job offers, some of the starts of their careers, and I think that the one thing that I've seen that we're trying to emulate at First Hospitality is a very, very clear path laid out early for growth, awesome. Right? The drawback there is it sets expectations that, you have to meet, or, they're going to go work for somebody else, right? But that's also, I think, the positive, right? It sets expectations for everyone, and it shows your new managers, your new associates, how they can move from an hourly position up to a general manager, an above property leader, or COO of the organization someday. So I think that's another area that as an industry we're a little bit behind. When I see what some of my kids' offers look like from tech companies and consulting companies and pharmaceutical. So I know we're trying to emulate that, and I think others are as well, but I think it's key.
Yeah. Ben C, do you want to get in on this one?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a significant opportunity for our industry. I mean, for us, we've started to change the language around what a GM is. They're really the business leader of the property. And so what does that entail? And I totally agree with everything Ben said. We're trying to do the same things. We're not perfect at it by any means, but we certainly try. But on the budget process, we started to, again, change our language around that. And it's more of a business plan process. We're taking the GM and the directors of sales through a process that's showing them exactly what the business model is that we kind of keep talking about, or I do. And then what is the target market? Where are they in the market? And then how are we going to position that hotel to be profitable for our ownership? And so understanding that entire why is definitely a lot for the GM that we're kind of talking about at 2 to 3 years that they've been promoted. But it's a constant communication and a constant training opportunity to show more of a broadened space of what our business really is than beyond, guest check in, guest check out, and we're focused on occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis.
Yeah, and if you think about it, what we're really talking about here is young general managers probably have a lot of fear and anxiety because they don't know what they don't know. They don't have those years of experience that older people have. So they're not necessarily working from a place of confidence continually. And that's why that training, the encouragement from the branch is so important. And then when you're general manager, I feel it has that sense of comfortability about them. That's when they could create a great experience for all of the staff, which translates into a great experience for all of the customers that are out there. Moneesh, how are you thinking about sustainability and workforce planning? Like, what are some of the long-term sustainable strategies you recommend to hotels to help them balance labor costs with maintaining service quality?
Well, this is going to be an unusual answer, but part of it is education, right? So, a great example that Ben C gave, where you got people coming in, they don't have confidence, and as a general manager, they need to take on more skills. We don't take the opportunity to educate people coming into our industry about the broader industry, right? Many people work at a property and they think they work for that brand, and I think we have an opportunity to educate them. Hotel 101. What are brands? What are asset owners? What are investors? What are their roles? Do you know you could be in any one of those businesses? You could be above property, on property. And so I think starting with educating employees about the ecosystem that they've joined, which has immense opportunity, and then giving them technology to learn and use data to provide a great guest experience. So I think it starts foundationally with education about the industry, about their particular business and the business plan that Ben referred to, because then they realize that they are part of something bigger and they can have a big impact decide based on where they want to go in their career, whether it's on property or they want to be a business analyst or someday be an owner. And what does that mean and how do they make that path? To me, that's the opportunity to retain people, is to show them the path to multiple careers within an industry which has so much growth potential, but people don't realize it.
Yeah, and that goes to what Jason was just saying. Ben P, you're writing a lot of notes over there, so I know you got something to say.
Yeah, just in general, I think also we can't ignore the fact that money talks. Okay, and you know, you got a base salary compensation package that you should constantly shop the market and also other comparable industries, because what we're seeing now is that, I mean, there is no such thing anymore as a career general manager. I mean, if National Rental Cars is paying $20,000 more to be a GM they're not really thinking twice to go and take on that opportunity. So not only just look around the comp set and the market, but also understand other opportunities that this general manager or leader may be introduced to, and then also from we're throwing a lot of things at them, a lot of dashboards, a lot of metrics that they have to deliver, and lots of pressures that are coming downstream. And so, having an annual goal, I'm seeing less of a success method than having more bite-sized pieces and smaller, like manageable quarterly goals that then tie into something annual. So there's some type of, at the end of the year, a nugget to stay the whole year rather than just hit a quarter. And so, and making those goals, something that's realistic, but also within in reach, but also will set the hotel up for success on all the different metrics, including customer satisfaction, performance in the market, and profitability.
Yeah, so I guess what you're really talking about is continually getting better. It doesn't have to be a massive leap, but they have to keep making forward progress with all the metrics that you're looking for. And Ben, I got to tell you, I love the idea of the quarterly stuff, because I do think it motivates people to stay in a corporation. Because if you're thinking, oh, I've got to go another 9-10 months before I get recognized for something, at least I know, instead it's every 3 months I can hit my goals. I can feel better about myself for hitting those goals. And there's more of a constant stream of either positivity, or I would say you're able to adjust performance through education and conversation quicker in the process. That'll help you retain those people.
Right. If you look at guest service as an example, and you just did the kind of a test and said, okay, this quarter we're going to do no incentive, and here's the goal for guest satisfaction by property, and look at and do the same protocols and on how you manage that throughout the quarter, and then the next quarter do the same thing but put an incentive there. Watch the difference in what the result is quarter over quarter. I've seen that, and so again, I really believe that money talks, and we shouldn't sideline that as well as part of the overall conversation.
Yeah, Benson.
As a micro example of that, we did the exact same thing that Ben P is talking about. We had a real world example of, we had GMs that were so focused on a monthly financial. What is my flow through? What's my GOP? What focused on that singular month, that it was biting them, in the butt, in the rear, on the next few months, because they were making bad decisions just to hit that singular focused isolated number. So we said, okay, no, we need to be looking at it on a quarterly basis, just like what Ben P was talking about. Let's build out the annual budget on our business plan, and then we're backing into very specific seasonal quarterly objectives then we're saying, hey, you had a great first couple of months. Let's spend a little bit more money on this third month that is going to benefit you long down the road for the rest of the year. That's going to benefit the asset, benefit the guests, maybe benefit the employees.
Jason, it sounds to me like there's a balancing culture with both short and long-term goals. How do you think about that for making sure that your people are actively engaged and continue to deliver great experience?
Yeah, no, I first of all, I agree. First Hospitality, we have a quarterly incentive program, which when I first came on board, I thought, boy, this must be, an administrative challenge, and, is it really the right approach? And then when I came on board and I realized how well it resonated with the team, I became a huge fan. And I think the critical piece on any incentive program is to make sure that you align, what's important to the company, where the company wants to grow, where the company wants to improve. You align that exactly the same as your incentive compensation so that everybody is rowing in the same direction, right? And then I think from a long-term standpoint, I think those plans and those goals should always evolve. And I think the beauty of a quarterly program is that, you don't have to lock it in for the full year, right? Mm-hmm. If something changes throughout the year, or there's an area where you want greater impact, you can make changes to that incentive program throughout the year and just realign your team on the direction that you want everybody to go. But agree with Ben, money talks. I think, we've all seen market wage increases that we've had to adjust to in our business. Incentive compensation for general managers is typically a big part of kind of assumed piece of their compensation. It's, how we typically roll. And if we really want our general managers to be the CEOs of their business, then that's how we should set it up.
Yeah, and the good news is with technology that we've been talking about, you may not need to pay for as many labor hours. So you may be paying people more per hour, but the overall result is they're going to be more engaged. They're going to be delivering better guest experiences, and they are going to stay with you. I believe the federal government said it's something like $6,000 per lost employee or something like that in soft and hard costs in order to replace them. So you think about that, it's just much better to try to keep those employees engaged. So Ben P., you started off by saying these shorter term goals. Could you give us either a real life example or a hypothetical example so folks at their properties could start to think about this in a way that they could say, oh, if I do this particular thing, then maybe my employees will dig it.
Well, look, there's two kind of components to the short and the long term goal. You have your senior level management, where expectations are usually set in the beginning of the year, the budget table or what have you, or filtered downstream, from the corporate staff, and then that. And I do believe that with those leaders, those senior leaders, the executive committee, the management, I believe that a quarterly plan is something to look at, and that you would take that plan and structure it. Not to recreate the wheel, but you look at employee satisfaction, right, at brand performance. Blend brand performance, employee satisfaction and profitability together, and by putting that on a quarterly plan and setting that metric, basing it off of either the prior year's actuals and an improvement on that, or what you believe the actual target should be for that particular hotel. I think that's certainly the way to go with the leadership, and then the line staff. There are ways to do incentives in housekeeping. It could be minutes per room. That's been a successful model where housekeepers that are able to deliver better productivities within a month. That also it has a gatekeeper to maintain certain metrics of cleanliness and standards. If you're able to kind of win on both of those categories, both by increasing the productivity and also from the cleanliness perspective on the brand surveys, then that equals some type of a reward. So,
yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Hey Ben, you should incent your GMs on quality of Wi-Fi connection.
This is not one of our hotels.
I couldn't resist.
All right. Look at it, Ben. I want to make it clear. Ben said it is not one of his hotels.
I will not name the hotel, but
don't say it's a First Hospitality.
I was about to say that's what he should have said.
It may or may not be a First Hospitality, but it is not a TPG hotel.
Moneesh, I'd like to get back to you. When it comes to Unifocus, how are you thinking about more broadly and then specifically about solving some of the problems we've been talking about today?
Specifically, I want to build off of something Ben P said earlier about money talks, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all trying to, create profitable enterprises. And so what we're focused on is giving people visibility into their labor and the costs around labor, because it's probably 40 to 50% of a typical hotel, your costs are in labor. And so to improve that by 4 to 6%, creates such an immense amount of opportunity to reinvest those savings, or to keep those and provide those to investors. So for us, providing that visibility to property owners, to asset owners, so that they can decide, how do I best utilize this resource, and how can I then deploy them so they're more effective, more productive, and satisfied. It's a lot of basic blocking and tackling. And then when you get strategic, it's about looking above property. And Jason mentioned, having the analytics so that I can look at, hey, here are my properties, here are the best performers. Let me understand, drill down, why are they performing better? Hey, do they have a quarterly incentive plan? Do they provide housekeepers with some sort of unit metric on cleaning rooms as opposed to number of rooms and compared to complexity? So starts with the basics of understanding the labor that you have, how to optimize it, and then looking at the more strategic metrics that you can then figure out how to have a more efficient property and balance your resources across your portfolio.
Interesting. And it gets me thinking about the metrics of how you handle housekeeping, because I know some guests are super clean and some guests are not. So I'm sure that housekeeping walks into certain rooms that are more of a challenge than others that could adversely affect their timing. So you have to weigh those things in as well, because if it's a super crazy mess with an unruly guest, then it's not fair necessarily to keep that housekeeper to a very specific time constraint. So I guess you could use technology to help housekeeping do their job more efficiently, while also figuring out ways to more fairly judge the amount of time it takes the.
And that's a great example, right? So we use that data in our current client base, where whether it's a business guest or a family, guess what? It's going to take a different amount of time to clean that room, and how many days are they on property? Those types of things get factored into the algorithm. So when you allocate the labor and you measure, is this housekeeper productive? Those are the types of data points really make a difference when you impact a labor schedule and you publish that, and people feel recognized when you take that into account. So those are the types of real life examples where technology can be used today.
Yeah,
Moneesh,
for sure.
do you mind if I ask how is Unifocus? How are you getting that data from the type of guest that it is? I'm assuming
the PMS,
you're talking about business mix. Okay, you're getting that.
Yeah, so we'll pull all that information in from the PMS and understand. Is it how many days? Is there a conference on property? You understand what they're connected to, a group reservation, and those can be then built into an algorithm to understand how long do you think it's going to take for this guest? And if it's an eco clean, guess what? We factor that's slightly different. Your hotel may have a policy where you're only going to clean if people stay a minimum of X days. Those types of things need to be factored in. And we have many properties that take that into account, and we see material savings in time and satisfaction and retention in housekeeping, as an example.
And I guess you have to understand what the focus of the property is. So Ben P, I'd love for you to respond to this. Then we'll get into some final thoughts. The hotel that we were talking about of yours earlier is at a major resort complex. So that's going to be families. So the time to clean a room is going to be very different at that property versus perhaps one of your other more business focused properties, and you have to adapt to that at each individual property, is my guess, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, you have to understand, it's not a one size fits all for housekeeping and guest, demographics and seasonality. We have a lot of independent hotels, and it's leisure all day long, 7 days a week in the summertime, and then, moving into a more of a business climate where, it requires less minutes per room. So it's really, but it's again, garbage in, garbage out. So you have to understand the asset profile, the market, what the trends have been, and make sure you put some thought into what you're going to utilize the technology to schedule off of, and then ultimately hold people accountable. And then if you get that right, the technology right, at that point, it just becomes, procedural, and, having those types of processes in place to ensure that you're hitting the mark, and then taking care of people along the way, like we talked about earlier today, is a big part of it, because you start to just focus on metrics and results, and that's it. And we're not in this climate where you can just be that robotic anymore in the hotel industry. We've got to show a little bit more Elvis.
Yeah, good, great.
Unlike Jason, where he just would call me and just tell me to pick up gum after working a 15-hour shift.
Yeah, Jason, I can't imagine how many jokes you heard about you being cruel throughout your career.
A few.
Yeah. So Jason,
the hospitality business, right?
Yeah. How about a final thought from you, sir?
Yeah, I think my final thought is we've talked, a lot about technology, and I think we need to be cautious on what we do with technology, right? We're a people business. We need to be in front of our guests. We need to be in front of our associates. And I think that any technology we implement should never take us away from that, but it should put us closer to that. So, when I was a GM, I would, go up to my office for a couple hours, and quite honestly, after a couple hours, I would get anxiety. Call it low trust. I don't know, but I would have to go run around the hotel for an hour and check in with guests and check in with associates. And I think that any technology we implement, the purpose should be to get our team members and our managers to spend more time one-on-one with customers and associates. And I think if we're cautious about it, it can add a lot of value to our operations, for sure.
Right, for sure. Remember, when people have a great experience at a hotel, they are traditionally talk about the people that worked at that property that set the stage for that experience. While people might think the decor is nice, they never come home saying, I'm going to stay there again because I like the... Ben, final thoughts from you, sir.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think it was brought up a couple of times around the incentive plan, around how do we incentivize. I mean, typically in any employee survey that we do at our properties, that is not the number one thing. It's generally the community, the culture, training, understanding the job that they desire the most. They've chosen to come work for us. Now, how are we going to fulfill that obligation for them? And so for us, what we call the culture inside of all of our hotels is the community, where everyone is a part of the same objective that we're trying to accomplish. Moneesh asked earlier, if we identify a hotel that's firing on all cylinders when it comes to NPRs or the metrics that we have, 9 out of 10 times when you dig into those metrics, you'll find that it's ran by a good business leader who takes care of their people, and the people down below are taking care of each other. And so that's where we're going to find the most efficiencies. And then those individuals are finding ways to go above and beyond to give those special experiences to our guests. And so that's, to me, the secret sauce. Everything else is the ancillary things that we're fighting for those margins, right? Yep. And so when we find hotels that aren't performing well, that's where we're digging in first. The properties that are performing exceptionally well, we're focusing on those margins and finding those marginal gains.
Fantastic. Moneesh, why don't you bring it home? And, you went a whole hour with such great information. Feel free to plug Unifocus too, for goodness sake.
I think we've talked enough about labor. So, we're in the labor business. You can check out our website if you'd like. I think, to sum it up, technology is an amplifier an accelerator of guest and client experience, guest and employee experience. It's not going to replace it. We're in an industry of people serving people. Technology should make that easier, and it's not a replacement. And so I think that's my big takeaway. It's not going to change our industry other than accelerate our ability to serve our guests.
That's fantastic. If done correctly, remember, the future is up to you. Do you want it to be just technologically driven and take the humanity out of it? Or do you want to do what we've been talking about today, utilizing it in order to make your people connect with other people in a more meaningful way? That's how you increase profits. That's how you keep your team engaged. And that's how you create a virtuous circle of experience and profitability. Hey, I had a great time. I want to thank you guys for being here today. What a great session we had today. And don't forget, this is going to be in the December Green Book issue of Hotel Business. Of course, you can rewatch the video at hotelbusiness.com and connect with everyone at social media on LinkedIn and Twitter. And of course, this will be released very soon on the No Vacancy podcast feed. I want to thank Unifocus for being here today, particularly Moneesh Arora and our friends Jason Kreul, Ben Campbell, and Ben Perelmuter. Thank you guys. Great seeing you. Thanks for being here. Really
Thanks, everybody.
appreciate you
Thanks,
all.
Glenn.
Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.